San Lorenzo is a club that is essential when talking about football in Argentina. One of the country's cinco grandes, its supporters are famed for their colourful displays and creative songs. But there's so much more to the club than those scenes on the terraces. Stories that author and avid Cuervo Will Dalton has dedicated his new book to telling. We met up with him at the London Football Book Market to talk about how he fell in love with the club and why you need to know more about it.
Thanks for joining us, Will. If you want to just start really by just telling us a bit about the book and how a lad from South London essentially came about to write a book about an Argentinian football club.
Yeah, well, it's been a bit of a love affair with San Lorenzo for over a decade now. But as I was there, living in Argentina on and off for a few years and making kind of trips back quite regularly, it did go from, as well as being a fan, as a bit of an analyst or commentator of sorts, because I'm doing stuff on social media about it, and you just notice how many stories come out of Argentine football and how many stories come out of San Lorenzo specifically, because it's almost like the perfect window into Argentine football because of the history they've got, the creativity of their fans, which is so famous, the kind of turbulent story of the club in many respects, the political elements, the historical elements, the cultural elements. So it gave me so much that ended up inspiring a book. And that came out about a month ago.
And when you first went to Argentina, you wrote about a bit about it in the book, did you have a vision that you were thinking about following San Lorenzo, or was it just a case of, I'm going to go and find a club and see whatever I like?
A little bit. I was open-minded, but I did have my eye on San Lorenzo because they've got a similar story to Charlton, which is my first love and my main love, in the sense that San Lorenzo lost their stadium and their neighbourhood in the 1970s. The same thing happened to Charlton, and it was fan campaigns which brought us home, which I think is kind of the biggest part of our identity in our history. So I could get why San Lorenzo had this connection with their home, which they lost and they still haven't fully returned to. And so that piqued my curiosity. Then I went to a couple of games and it was sort of love at first sight, the atmosphere, the feel of the club, the people. I felt involved with kind of Argentine life for the first time, which wasn't easy when you arrive, don't speak great Spanish, etc. And it kind of went from there.
And you wrote a bit about in the book as well, if the first time you went, you didn't feel confident enough to actually go to the ground yourself. Just talk about that first experience of when you got into the ground. I know I've been there myself, and like that first time you look at it, you've seen all the videos before you go and you just go, I'm literally here, it's a crazy experience, isn't it?
It is. You're completely right. And it's that sense of, although you're watching the pitch and you're locked into the 90 minutes, you're looking around you so much, and particularly looking to the right-hand side where I was in my first games. I was in the side platea stand. I was looking to the right, which is the main end behind the goal, the Popular, where the Barra Brava is, where the main hinchada is, the hardcore of the support. And the show they put on is often better than what's going on the pitch. And like I say, when it's your first game there, you end up kind of glued to just watching them, the colours, the flags, the flares, the songs, the ticker tape, as much as you are the game. And from that moment, as you say, like I was there with like a tour company, I didn't speak great Spanish, didn't know the situation with tickets. So just trying to learn as much as possible about where I need to go next time, how do I get here, how do I get my tickets, do I become a member, blah, blah, blah. And then the next step, how do I get in there, how do I get behind the goal with the hardcore? Because it was going off basically, it looked so fun. And it really draws you in. And so, within a few months, I did become a member and started going regularly behind the goal, which is, just kind of takes the experience to the next level, I guess.
I almost forgot to say at the start there how we actually came about to meet each other. And I think that shows you, even Argentinian football, how worldwide it's actually become. And would you like to tell the story about that? Because it was quite a random occurrence, wasn't it?
It was mad. But I saw one of your videos from San Lorenzo, doing a really great kind of match day experience, how it should be, with the fan bus behind the goal as well, weren't you? Getting the full experience, and I thought, cracking video. You don't get many people who tell the story and show the experience as thoroughly as you did in that video. And then maybe a week later, I'm walking down where I live in southeast London in Forest Hill, and you're there. And I probably just looked at you without saying anything, just sort of looked at you probably for longer than was a normal amount of time. You probably looked back at me, because I think I was wearing a San Lorenzo shirt.
I remember that.
I'm usually bowling around town in a Charlton shirt or a San Lorenzo shirt. And then I think I saw you again on the way back up from Sainsbury's or whatever. I was like, did you make that video at San Lorenzo? You're like, yeah, and I saw your shirt, and it was bizarre. And like you say, that interest is there now. People are getting more conscious of it because of content like yours. And I think most people do see the Bombonera, the Monumental, River and Boca, and that's kind of it. One, I wanted to show that there's a lot more to Argentine football than the big two, and that some of the great stories and the real culture actually spawns from San Lorenzo. And two, that kind of explaining the scenes. It's not just, all crazy Latinos and their passion and their cheering. Like, there's so much story behind it. There's so much the the connection to their neighbourhoods, the community elements, the history, the fan-owned model, all that kind of stuff is, worth exploring for me, and that's what informed the book. So it goes a lot more, kind of further beyond San Lorenzo and looks into Argentine football as a whole, because I was able to go to lots of different grounds and see lots of games. So, you get quite a wide range of experiences in there and stories, even though San Lorenzo is the lens, if you like.
You go into it in the book just about how much history there is behind the club, and not always a happy history either, in terms of the fact that you mentioned how it's reflected even Argentina as a country, the ups and downs of the nation. If you could just go a bit into that, really.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. So even like from the formation, you've got the fact that it was set up by a load of kids, Italian and Spanish immigrants, playing in the street. The fact they were playing in quite an impoverished neighbourhood, quite unsafe. They're playing football in the street. One of the young players nearly got hit by a tram, and the local priest, Lorenzo Massa, saw that incident. He was doing a lot of social work as well as his mass on a Sunday in the area, and he thought, this can't go on. This is not safe for these kids. How about you lot can play in the grounds of the church safely, play football there whenever you like if you come to mass on a Sunday. And ultimately, that's how the club was formed. A year later, they made San Lorenzo official as a club. And so you've got those parallels with how Argentina was coming together as a kind of society, with the religious element, with the social element. Football clubs are sprouting up everywhere at that point. San Lorenzo then had their boom 10 or 15 years later and onwards for the next couple of decades, just as Argentina was going through the same thing, with kind of meat exports going through the roof and that being that great land of prosperity and hope. And then just as it kind of stuttered, San Lorenzo stuttered midway through the century, and then in its darkest hour, obviously under the military dictatorship in the 1970s and early 80s, San Lorenzo nearly disappeared. They're in the bad books of the military dictatorship. That played a factor in them losing their stadium, essentially being ejected from the ground and their beloved, the Wembley of Buenos Aires, they called it, the Gasómetro in Boedo in central Buenos Aires. And got relegated and nearly disappeared. And it's just funny how those parallels happen. And then Argentina recovers in the democratic era, San Lorenzo do, as an institution and kind of on the pitch in terms of success. It remains so fragile, Argentina, boom and bust, swinging to right and left, loads of kind of economic woes. San Lorenzo are exactly in that situation as well. So it is striking, all those parallels and the little social stories and kind of cultural and political stories that sprout up from just kind of following the club in many ways.
And that aspect of not currently having a stadium in the barrio where they started, you touched upon it earlier, are similarities to, say, Charlton. Just, I don't think a lot of fans, even when they see the videos you talk about in the book as well, you watch them on YouTube before you go to the country. I'm not sure a lot of people realise that, that is such a core part of San Lorenzo now, but it is not the place that they want to be. I mean, how much of a core part of San Lorenzo as an entity is the barrio itself?
It is, because every song they sing practically cites Boedo, the original barrio. And as you say, it's quite an iconic ground now. You see those steep terraces behind the goal. It's a great place to watch football. It does feel like home, but because it's 2 miles down the road and not in that barrio where the club was born, people don't feel like they are truly at home, and they won't rest and they won't, truly give up on the hope of going back to Boedo until it happens. They're just so... Argentine clubs are sprouting up as the barrios themselves were forming. So it wasn't like maybe in Europe where these neighbourhoods and cities have existed for decades, centuries perhaps. The football clubs arrived and they've kind of just, they've gone into that kind of fully formed little social circle. In Argentina, it was happening at the same time. The towns and the barrios were often coming around the football club. The football club would sprout out, and that would give the local people the sense of our community and our neighbourhood and stuff. So I think that's quite distinct with Argentina, which makes it an ultra-strong connection with their neighbourhood. And the fact that San Lorenzo had this wonderful, famous stadium, the Wembley of Buenos Aires, as I say, the fact they were removed by a military dictatorship against their will, and they were, banished from their home, does create that strength of feeling. So, they've got this very good new ground, serviceable ground that's been there since the 1990s, but the dream is to return to Boedo, where the club was born.
Because it's just that bit, I suppose, for fans, that it just won't be the same until they get that return, right?
That's it. And you know what it's like when you walk around Buenos Aires. You walk around, it doesn't even have to be La Boca, where it's famously yellow and blue everywhere. You could be central and in the barrio Villa Crespo, where Atlanta play. Second tier club, not a big outfit at all. But that club is in town when you're in that, when you enter that barrio. It's the yellow and blue again, painting all over the lampposts, murals everywhere. You go to Rosario and the city's literally divided between red and black for Newell's and yellow and blue for Rosario Central. And wherever you go all over the country, the barrio is so kind of, marked out according to the club that's there. And so, yeah, it just has the extra kind of important part of the club identity, I guess.
And as well in the book, you use San Lorenzo most as a gateway to also talk about other aspects of Argentinian football culture. I mean, for the fan that is wanting to go, I mean, what would you say that they should expect when they get to Argentina?
They should expect a little bit of chaos. And it's good, I guess, that first time you do go to maybe get involved with a tour company. There's one cracking company called Pibe de Barrio. Local people who know football inside out will take you to the game, sort out your tickets, show you to the food and drink that people are having before the game, where it's the kind of chorizo sandwiches or the Fernet and Coke, which is such a popular drink there. Those elements are great, so it's not a bad idea to have that intro before you start going your own way. And then just go as much as possible and don't just pay the big money to go to Brocken River. Go definitely to San Lorenzo, two other Grandes, obviously, in Racing and Independiente, especially Racing. It's a beautiful stadium. I might not love the club, but it's a great club. And then below that, in the second tier, Nuevo Chicago, to the west of the city. Fantastic area, great support. Chacarita, just outside town. Atlanta, we've mentioned. Vélez Sarsfield, there's loads. Huracan have got a beautiful stadium, Again, San Lorenzo's local rivals. They're not popular in Boedo at all, but it's a cracking stadium. So, yeah, be aware of all the different options you have in Buenos Aires and in Rosario and other cities as well, and try and see as much as possible, because it's, for me, it's the best place in the world to watch football, bar none.
And for yourself now, you're making yourself quite a vocal San Lorenzo supporter. When you go to other grounds now, you're starting to feel a bit like an infiltrado, as they call them, which is basically, isn't it, when a fan of a club, because there's no away fans allowed in the ground, goes to watch the team playing on another ground, are you starting to feel, if you went to Huracan, for example, would you feel a bit?
Yeah, potentially. Thankfully, no one really cares about an Englishman over in London banging on about San Lorenzo too much at Huracan, so I'm sure they wouldn't notice. But yeah, you do go around as kind of many grounds as possible. I do. I went to like All Boys last time as well on a Monday night. And you do get a few odd looks sometimes if you're not wearing the shirt, because everyone wears the home shirt. They don't know, everyone is kitted out in club merchandise, and they're like, who is this kind of foreign person at this second tier game on a Monday night? But then they're delighted to have you then. If you speak a bit of Spanish to them and show the interest, they'll welcome you in, as you know, just like your experiences in Argentina. And it's a great thing to do. But yeah, I was lucky that when I was living in Argentina, through cup games, I was able to go to quite a few games where there's two sets of fans in the ground, which makes all the difference, because, as you rightly say, no away fans in 95% of league games, which takes a lot away from the kind of experience, I think. But thanks to those cup games and some away travels and a Copa Sudamericana and stuff like that, I managed to get some trips to Cordoba and Chile and even Morocco for the Club World Cup. And yeah, there's a nice element of travel woven into the book as well from those trips.
The thing that you mentioned as well, just about the fans there, I think Argentinian football also has a reputation for sometimes being a bit dangerous. But like you say, people might initially say, "Oh, what's this Englishman doing here?" But it's not out of malice, is it? It's just more of a general feeling of just interest to be like, "What's this guy doing here?" But then, 100%. Like you say,
and then they love it. And then you explain, "Oh, I just wanted to see All Boys Stadium on a Monday night," and they go, and they'll welcome you in, and they're delighted, aren't they? Like they want to show you. Did you want a mate, by the way?
I'll have a bit, yeah. Cheers.
Get stuck into that. And they're very welcoming, and you are maybe conscious of that as an Englishman with the history of the Falklands, Malvinas, and you can't escape the Malvinas when you're in Argentina, whether it's on the side of every bus. Legally, they have to say Las Malvinas son Argentinas. The Falklands are Argentine. Picture of the islands, football flags. So many of them have the Malvinas. Just it's everywhere. It's in the papers all the time. How are they going to get them back, etc. But that doesn't translate at all in terms of hostility to Englishmen. I knew loads of Brits out there and Europeans, people from all over the world when I was living in Buenos Aires, and we always just felt so incredibly welcome. So if you're not coming with some strong political agenda, or you're like an ex-military or something, people welcome you in, and they always say, our problem is with the British Empire and Maggie Thatcher. And the everyday Brit, they have a lot in common with the passion for football, the passion for music. They love our bands, a lot of passion for British literature in some circles as well, because of the kind of soft power that the British Empire did have in Argentina kind of a century ago. There's a lot of British influence that's still there. So, yeah, very different cultures, but you never feel any sense of hostility or rejection of what you're about as a Brit over there at all.
I'll pass you there. But and suppose when you even talk about they love the music, they love the culture of even Britain, it's like Oasis are filming a documentary there at the moment.
Yeah, Oasis are at San Lorenzo today. We're playing tonight against Sarmiento, and about 2017, one of the main fan groups I interview in the book called Escuela de Tablones, School of the Terraces, a bit of a moniker that's been created because of San Lorenzo's history of being the place where all the songs start in Argentina and then they spread to the wider continent around the world. That group, Escuela de Tablones, has made a song about 8 years ago to Wonderwall, and it's kind of heard before the games behind the stands, occasionally in the ground, but didn't really catch on. But I think their fans are using Oasis's arrival in Argentina on their tour to kind of, resurface that song. I think Oasis got wind of it, their team did, and they're doing a bit of filming before the game at San Lorenzo today. Probably do a little rendition of the San Lorenzo version of it. Word spreads about the creativity of the San Lorenzo fans for sure.
There'll be some atmosphere in the ground today, won't it?
Be amazing.
Just a few more questions. I mean, one as well, just on the general Argentina, the kind of the craziness almost on the ground you touch upon when you went to Nuevo Chicago. I mean, that's just about where I've got to in the book at the moment. You talk about the scene where the mascot gets sent off. I mean, nothing sums up Argentinian football more than that, does it? If you could just explain being in the crowd and seeing something like that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it is wonderful. Like you said, it always delivers. It's just kind of, it's mania and it's chaos, and it can be very funny. Nuevo Chicago playing a big game, a playoff match against a team from Jujuy. And the away team took an early lead. Their time-wasting game. Their keeper's the kind of worst culprit, just time-wasting at every opportunity he gets. And the whole stadium is obviously fuming. They're pressing for equaliser. They get their equaliser quite late on, and then suddenly it's payback time. So the keeper, there's a away keeper, goes to fetch the ball. Now he's hurrying up because his team need a goal. And the Nuevo Chicago mascot, Tito el Torito, Tito the bull, the Nuevo Chicago bull, goes, "You're not having the ball," and holds it and delays. And then the players, all the defenders are coming over behind the pitch. Hey, look, I'm going to go at the mascot. But the mascot just kind of doubles down, keeps the ball away. They eventually get it back. But then he's shouting abuse back, personal abuse, and he's lifted up his big, fluffy bull head just to shout sort of from the neckline abuse at the away players. The referee sees this and has to intervene because the away players are fuming, sends off Tito el Torito, the mascot is sent off, and rather than it being a big comedic scene, he's fuming, the bull is fuming, the head's back on, and he marches off and he's giving it to the ref, and he's giving it to the away players. The fans are fuming, sort of laughing, but more just everyone's just angry in the moment, and it goes right round the pitch as this indignant walk, storms down the tunnel, rips off his head, and it was just a wonderful piece of theatre. And the kind of, the chaos can just come from anywhere in Argentine matches, often particularly in the Ascenso in the lower leagues. Well worth going to games like that because you probably do get a little more just kind of craziness and unexpected moments.
You just never know what's going to happen, do you?
No.
Just finally as well, I'll pick up the book here. It's called O San Lorenzo. If you want to just give just a final brief description of what it is and where you can get it for the viewers.
Nice one. Yeah, so it's a look at Argentine football in general, San Lorenzo being the lens, the history, and the kind of my experience of following the club for 10 years and travelling all over the world watching them. That's the lens into all elements of Argentine fan culture, from the barras bravas to the hardcore support, to the communities, to the cities behind them, to match day experience, a bit of history there, a bit of anthropology in there. So a bit of everything, which hopefully kind of gives a bit of detail and colour behind those crazy scenes we see on social media from Argentine football. Plenty in there. As I say, San Lorenzo's the muse throughout. Wonderful club. And you can get it online in all the usual places and in some the bigger kind of foils, Waterstones, etc. as well.
Cool. No worries. Well, thanks very much.
Appreciate that.
Absolute
James.
pleasure.
Nice one,
and go and buy the book, everyone.